Hello.
I love how I was holding that a little bit too long, but whatever.
You were getting the shot. Guaranteed a
I
shot.
I know exactly. So I am super excited today, everybody. Trey is on. Da, da, da.
Pew, pew, pew.
Yay! That noise. I love that noise.
Air horns. Air horns always make the day. Listen, when in doubt, just throw a couple air horns out there. It gets better.
So welcome everybody to the Cackle. This is where we meet with Midwest change makers and connect the dots between economic trends and the lived experiences of people navigating them. I'm Emily Heinz. I'm the founder and managing director of Entry Point. At Entry Point, we partner with economic development organizations and nonprofits to foster inclusive and vibrant communities across the Midwest through research and community-focused programming. It's so fun. Also, if you are looking to look through any of our research, we have a lot of research on the startup and small business community across the Midwest. You can check it all out and download it all at entrypointmi.com. And if you are a repeat cackler, welcome. And if you are new, welcome. And today is Trey Boynton. She is the Director of Inclusion and Collaboration Strategy and Inclusive Solutions at Cisco. The shortest company name for the longest title. I love it.
It's all about balance. It's all about balance. Gotta have both.
Okay, and she's also one of my favorite people on the planet, which she might get a restraining order put out against me soon if I keep saying that because I'm so obsessed. I was like, everyone watch today because she's so amazing.
Thanks, friend.
Okay. Tell everyone like a little bit about your background and kind of like what brought you to Michigan and like what led you to joining the startup community, kind of like your journey.
My journey. Okay. Yeah. Well, as a wee young lass, I actually came here for graduate school. So I'm based in Ann Arbor, Michigan, right around the corner from you. And I came here in 97 and I was getting my degree in education and higher education. I wanted to work with college students. I'm a first generation college student and college was transformative for me. My mother, the only thing that my mother talked about was let's just get to college. I don't know what you do after that, but that was the goal. And so college was this wonderfully beautiful experience for me. I did it in a really unique way. I went to a historically Black college for 2 years. Then I graduated from Georgetown and then went to Michigan for grad school. So I feel like I got this beautiful experience of higher education, right? Like, how cool is that? You know?
Yeah, that's the cool way to do it. I think.
Yeah. And so when I think for me, it was the mentors, coaches that I had during that journey. They were, professors, they were transformative for me. And I wanted to be a part of that experience. And so I got a degree in higher education and Michigan offered me a full ride, which made it really easy to say yes.
Fancy,
so, yeah. So for me, it was like, okay, let's try this little small town. And I came directly, I took a gap year and came from DC after graduating. And I was like, all right, okay, Midwest, let's see what this is about. I'm originally from California, the Bay Area. And I had my first winter here and I was like, well, nope, this is rude, unacceptable. I'm out. Who chooses this? Why would we do that?
Also, it's really funny that I did not feel like I remember you being from the Bay Area. Like I knew you were from somewhere else, but I think I always imagined you growing up near DC. So I don't know why.
Yeah, maybe we just only talked about my time at university. Maybe that's just where we've been focused. But yeah, my mom lives in Oakland. Yeah, my mom lives in Oakland. I have a place where like we get our Christmas trees under that right near the Grand Theater in Oakland. Like that's where we go. So for me, the Midwest was new. And I think in hindsight, I don't think this is again, the first gen college student stuff. You don't know that where you go is most likely where your network will be. And especially for higher education. I mean, the best laboratory in the world for someone who's a student affairs person is to go to University of Michigan. It's the biggest laboratory ever. And you get to kind of do that. And I started getting internships and jobs after I graduated. And I said, okay, just this one job. And then I'll be fine. And I kept working at Michigan. I kept getting these opportunities. And then I spent 20 years almost at the university working with student communities and student leaders and housing and multicultural affairs and social justice education and leadership education, community involvement, community organizing, all that kind of stuff. and I just had a blast. And if you would have asked me in the beginning of my career, would you ever be at a tech company or at a startup or in the Midwest? And I'd be like, that's funny. Okay, what else do you want to joke about? So yeah, just that's how I got to the Midwest. And I think now I'm a Midwest kind of girl. My kids are here. I'm not leaving. Every time I go to California, I'm like, I love to visit. I'm good on living here. I'm good.
What do you think is the big difference? Like, is it like the traffic or like quality of life, or is it like kind of the people or the culture, or like what's?
I think for me, it is the lack of traffic. I'm not going to lie. Traffic has gotten ridiculous. Whenever I go home, and when I was at Duo, I would go to our office in San Mateo, and I would be like, okay, I'll just drive from my mom's office. It's like an hour drive, and to do that twice a day for like 4 days, I was like, there's not enough books on tape. There's not enough Audible books. There's not enough gum I can chew before I start to get really stressed and starts becoming a person I don't like.
Driving in California is really just another thing. Like my brother used to live in LA, and I'd gotten a rental car there, and like even was there for like 7 years, I think.
Yeah.
And we would be at a light, and the light would turn green, and I'd go, and the car behind me would have already beeped at me. I'm like, how were you even able to like react that fast?
Your reflexes are Olympian.
I literally can't drive any faster at the light.
It's a little stressful. It's a little stressful. And I think there's something about I have a live with it relationship with the Midwest. There are, of course, parts. I think the community there in California is phenomenal. I think the diversity is phenomenal, and I think the integration. There are parts that you will just walk down a street and see so many different folks within a kind of square 5 miles. That's what I love about California. But the trade-offs to get that, when I can go visit my family and get that, I think I have the best of both worlds, because I get, I like the space. I like the pace of the Midwest. I realized, it's not the South, because I went to school in the South, and that's really slow, but I think it's a perfect fit for where I am. And I think it's the ability to, in California, you have to fly. We don't really drive to far places because we're always in cars. So I think for me, I love that I can spend 4 hours in a car and go to Chicago. I can make a day trip and get to the East Coast, and I can get to Toronto. Like, there is this ability to kind of travel within this space. There is this region. It's regional versus like you're in the city, and I think that's there.
Stuck there. That's interesting. So kind of talk through. So you were doing diversity and inclusion work at University of Michigan, and that's where I had first heard about you. And I was like, oh, I'm obsessed with this person from afar. I must meet them. And I remember asking for like an intro. Like, I somehow found like some stocky way to get to you. And then like the person was like, okay, actually, she just left and she went to Duo, which of course I'm a gigantic Duo fan.
I mean, me
like,
too.
Fangirl. Like, I'm like, oh my gosh, if Doug Sung could just like speak at my funeral one day, that would be great. Or like something.
Right.
Like, I see Peter Katz at the pool in the summertime, and I'm like, it's not like quite that bad, but I'm like, it was like, oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And so like, I think we connected just after that, but talk a little bit about like your career in like this type of work, like diversity, equity, inclusion, how you ended up at Duo. Like,
yeah. So like I said, I got into student affairs work, and I think that working at Michigan with students is students come as they are, and they come with their lived experience, and they're asking the institution to help them both make meaning out of that, to see them, and to instruct them and help them grow in ways that allow them to be fully seen, and be able to kind of really lean into who they are and what they bring to the table. And that's everything from first generation college students, international students, students of color, students across the gender spectrum, queer students, like however student athletes. I mean, pick a student. And I think for me, being an administrator at our college campus, you got to learn about what that means, and you have to learn about yourself. And so I was really curious. And I think for me, the reason why I do diversity work and I got into this work was because every time I talked about and I started to learn about the dynamics of identity, systems of inequality, systems of oppression, how we understand and intergroup relationships, inter and intra group, right? Like there's just really this amazing way to see the world. And I think that for me personally, it was about making meaning of my lived experience. In all the places that I had been, understanding that identity was always a present theme in the dynamics of who I was and how I was either part of, going from a predominantly white, rich white Catholic private school, which I'm neither rich nor white nor Catholic.
Yeah.
But that was the path to college, right? Remember my mom, she was trying to get me to college. And then going to a historically Black college, you want to talk about a
yeah, you got
like I had to, I didn't have the language to make meaning of that. And now when I got my degree, when we were talking about student identity development and Black identity development and queer identity development and like all of that stuff of what I was going through, I was like, oh, that's what I was doing. Oh, that makes so much sense now. No wonder I walked home after one semester at a Black college and was like wearing a dashiki with patchouli oil with my hair braided. I'm like, Mom, we got to fight the man. And she's like, who are you? We shop at Nordstrom's. What are you doing? And so like,
I was so excited about that. Like, I feel like
that's and it was
exploration.
It's just, yes, that's like identity. Identity is such a beautiful thing. And I think it's so multifaceted. It's all of the things that make it up, including social identity, but our personalities, our experiences, our history, our traditions, our culture, right? It's this beautiful kind of mix and kaleidoscope of that. And I think, and also there are rules in place about specific groups that society has created unfairly, fairly and unfairly. And to understand that it wasn't personal, that in sixth grade, when something got stolen, I was the only kid pulled out of school to ask where did it go. That was not a coincidence, but I thought it was Trey. I thought the issue was Trey, but no, that was the bias of the teachers who I loved dearly, who, without knowing their bias, had said, well, it must be the kid of color. It must be the one Black girl we got in school. So let's ask her where it went. But nobody else got pulled out. And I say that only because my work in equity and inclusion and diversity has helped me make meaning of that. And I also think for me, the ability to understand what messages society gives you around that and to also reject those, right? That's my big favorite. My favorite is to say, actually, don't assign that to me. And how do I interrupt that? How do I course correct? And how do I contribute to a narrative that actually, and this was our vision at Duo, because we'll talk about kind of how I got into this work at Duo. Our goal was to reduce barriers to brilliance. Everyone has ample intelligence and the ability to produce great things, but they don't have the opportunity or the belief by society to always do that. Mm-hmm. So what if we just remove those barriers? That's my job. That's my day job. My day job is to just kick stuff over, remove it out the way, disrupt this, toggle this thing. If I it's like I'm out of all these twisting all these knobs and stuff just to say, can everyone just have a chance to be just badasses? And how do we let people do that without societal expectations that they're less than or shouldn't or couldn't or can't or won't?
Can everyone see why I'm so obsessed with Trey?
I went on a rant. I gotta slow my answers down. Gosh, we're gonna be here forever.
I know. I was like, oh God, what time is it? Oh, we're like half done already.
Nerding out. Okay, stay focused. Stay focused.
Question number 1.
I'm here.
Okay, so so what made you leave University of Michigan and go to Duo? Like, why did you do that?
Yeah, I think I was itchy without knowing I was itchy to try to see if I could do this somewhere else. And it was never in my dreams. Like, remember I said, never tech. And then I heard Duo was hiring. And I remember recommending for people to go interview with Duo. And it had been open forever. And my friend, God bless good friends who say, get off your butt and go interview. And I'm like, what? Not me. I'm not going to get that job. Yeah. So then I had a conversation with the aforementioned Doug Song at a tech trek in Ann Arbor. It was an open house, and I walk in, and so really quick, I had a snow cone. It was, and it was a blue snow cone. So imagine meeting Doug Song with a blue tongue and a cold handshake. So I had this zombie encounter with Doug. I'm freezing. My hands are freezing because I'd been holding a snow cone, and then my tongue is like bright blue. And I was hoping that my teeth were blue. All the ways to meet your potential boss, come on, get it together.
Real cool.
Looking really great. Way to kick it off. Way to make a first impression. But it was I remember Jasmine and Doug, the recruiter, and then she brought me over to Doug. She says, you need to talk to him. And I just said, and I was I went for broke. And I said, well, here's what I would want to do. And I don't think you want to do this. I mean, you got to really do it. And I was kind of off the cuff. And I was like, well, you gotta actually want to do it. You gotta have a belief. And this is what I tell every startup or company that's thinking about diversity. You gotta have a clear vision for change. You got to have some core values that help you make decisions when it's the most hard. And, he started talking about what he and the team were doing at Do. And I was like, wait a minute, I feel like y'all, and I started to lean in. And then I said, well, I think I could do that there. And you won't say no if I say we should probably challenge this status quo, or we should probably interrupt this choice. And he's like, no, in fact, I need you to do that. I was like, well, I like you. I think I like you. I think I had a perception of tech. And then when that perception was, I was completely disavowed of that. And then I went in and I was like, oh my God, y'all are amazing.
Yeah. I find I really just voyeuring on the culture at Duo over time. So for people who don't really know, they probably do know, but whatever, I'm going to say it anyway. So Duo Security is a cybersecurity company that got started in Ann Arbor, expanded, has place in Austin, other places all over the place, scaled, and then eventually was acquired by Cisco. And then most of the employees, I'm just going to say a lot of the employees went then and now are working at Cisco. So, So I, always really love the team at Duo Security. I'm actually a SAAS security fangirl, if anybody really even knows. I one time heard that all they had was SAAS security stickers. And I'm like, could someone peel that off their computer and give it to me? Because I would frame it. It's probably going to be in the mail soon. So Duo Security is really worked hard to build this inclusive and equitable environment for the employees. And what are a lot of the things that you guys kind of thought through, or I feel like it's how do you even go about doing that where people can really authentically be themselves at work?
Yeah. I mean, I started with the core values, and they were, here's the thing that I loved about Duo. They kept it simple. The early team and the ways in which they built the company, it was let's not make this hard. Let's make it easily repeatable for people to know what our core values are. Let's reference them and actually repeat the behaviors that reflect them obsessively without being forced. Does that make sense? How do you just make it part of the behavior and the habit? I talk about thick habits, like loaves of bread. And if you're trying to break down a habit, you got to slice it up. But if you're trying to build a habit, you kind of got to bake a loaf. You got to get the ingredients. You got to get into this. Food analogies always work when you're talking about culture. But I think when you're trying to build something, you have to replicate and make sure that the behavior is reinforcing what you're trying to build. It is not lost on me, and it's not rocket science, that when people are like, I don't know why our culture's all messed up. Well, maybe because people keep yelling at each other and interrupting each other in a meeting. No, it's the little stuff. And it was these decisions that the leadership team made, and the everyday individual contributors. And just, it's at the company meeting, you're doing gratitude, and you're just there's a karma channel in Slack where it's thank you. You know what you did. And we don't even have to tell you what you did, but just recognizing you in that moment. And I remember I was like, where am I going? Why am I getting hearts in this channel? And it was Trey, you know what you did. And I was like, I don't even know what I did, but thank you. And it was this wonderful environment where you come in. And I remember meeting with when I first got there and starting to meet with leaders, it was just like, hey, what are you bringing to the table? And you are valid by being here. When you get hired here, you bring something. And it was this wonderful thing we started to talk about, which was you had to align with our values, right? You couldn't be a lone wolf. You couldn't be a jerk. No jerks. You couldn't kind of just want to be in it for the, you're not doing it for the gram. I don't know if that wasn't a value, but like, it wasn't like the selfish, you couldn't be selfish there. You had to be really about the collective, and you had to be about this bigger purpose of democratizing security. And so if you're aligned with that, come on in. And we want you to bring something we don't yet have. So it was values alignment with cultural addition. And Doug talked about this. We talked about this on the people team, where it was, let's hire people who align with how we want to do the work, but we want you to bring new things too. And that was magical.
Oh, I love that. So to kind of like shift it over to the Cisco land, because they're going to be like, why are you always talking about dual security? So they're like, I love them. So I feel like larger corporations a lot of times like seem to be, and this is like my outsider perspective of larger corporations, because I'm like, seem to be the least progressive. They're like the least likely to take like what they perceive as risks and like do all this sort of stuff. Like how focused and vocal is Cisco when it comes to like, DEI work and human rights issues?
Here's what we talked about before. I said, I think there's a myth about that. And I think there's some truth to that. I think there's some myths. And I think the myth is the proof point is Cisco. When we got acquired and I went to start working for the larger, the mothership, I like to call it, because, we become a business unit as Duo, and I'm not in the product. So I needed to kind of get absorbed into the larger practice. And I remember going, I don't know, let's see. I had my doubts. And then I got there and I was, cause I was like, well, we were doing great work at Duo. Let's see. And I was kind of like, skeptical.
I know. I was skeptical from the outside. I don't even work at any of these organizations. I was like, well, we'll see.
You're like, I don't know. I'm an interested party following.
I know. I'm a
plus one following.
We'll see how this goes.
Right. So I got there and I remember I was put in charge of the solutions team. So of course, inclusion solutions. And I started to see what they had built and my jaw dropped to the floor. And I said, holy crap, you have this thing called diverse talent accelerators, which is a digitized solution that allows leaders to have a sense of where they are with their diversity, a snapshot of their organization from a leadership level. Then you have what the market looks like. So where is the diverse talent? And I can actually look in the US and globally with gender to see where is the talent. So if I want to open a job rec to increase representation, I can look where women engineers are or women customer experience folks are. And I can look for Black or Hispanic engineers in Texas and Atlanta, respectively. And it's like, wait, what? How'd you do that? And then they partnered with, I know.
I was like, wait, how'd you
friend, we got to talk about that later. That's an offline conversation, and I will talk to you about that.
Side of me was like,
we need to talk about that asterisk later. Parking lot. So then there's a partnership with Textio to create job descriptions that are inclusive and that are that we were doing that at Duo. So they were doing the same thing. And then another piece of Smart Select with driving diverse interviewer panels as a motion. That suite is one of the many solutions that I have in my portfolio. A culture of sponsorship, trying to close the gap between sponsorship of women and folks of color. They tend to have less sponsors than white men. And so how do we close that gap? So the multiplier effect, you could go right now and take the pledge to sponsor someone. So it's inclusion at scale through digitization. And I was like, well, I mean, if I would have, I think I was trying to think about building this at Duo, but I didn't know that I could. And I didn't know, and you have, and oh my God, I'm in charge of it. And it's a product. So I actually have PMs on my team who are delivering digitized solutions to drive inclusion at the point of decision making. So I'm like, well, I got to stay here for a little bit and figure this out. This is really cool.
Because do you guys sell that to other organizations at all?
No, so we're talking about externalization, and I think we're always ready to talk with folks who want to hear about how we built it. And we're doing things like self-ID, where we're talking about allowing people to fully represent themselves at Cisco. So I had just recently, as a queer woman, got to put, lesbian down in sexual orientation, along with my pronouns, along with a more nuanced look at race. So we disaggregated race. So if you're Latinx, you could say, well, I'm Guatemalan, or I'm Mexican, or I'm Honduran. And you get to put that in there now, because we want people to, like, if we're going to see you, let's actually give you the choice. It's opt in. And that's some of the things that we're doing from a leadership perspective. And the last thing I'll say, oh my gosh, it's not enough time, I was one of the, probably the proudest moments of my career last year was when we launched our social justice beliefs in September. And if you go to Cisco and look up social justice beliefs and actions for the Black community, we launched a set of beliefs that we believe that technology is for good. We believe in social justice. We believe in a culture of coalescence. We believe in addressing insecurity of being. And we believe in curiosity, proximity, and empathy. What? I like that. They let me write stuff down on a page that, our leaders were saying, actually, what more can we say? What more can we believe in? I mean, when we believe social justice is apolitical, because we inherently believe that everyone needs to be respected, valued, and heard. What? Who lets me do that? And Cisco was like, yeah. And here's what I will say. The common thread between Duo and Cisco, the leaders. I will never take a job without believing in the leader. That's because I believe in Chuck Robbins. I believe in Fran Katsoutis. I believe in Sherry Slate. That's our CEO, Chief People, Purpose, and Policy Officer, our Chief Inclusion and Collaboration Officer. And I believe in Doug Song. Doug can call me up right now and tell me, Trey, we're doing this. I'd be like, okay. Yeah. Leaders change the game. And when you believe at the leadership level and you drive it in from it's part of our business, it's not a side hustle. When inclusion is not a side hustle, it changes the organization and the output of the people. I guarantee it.
Yeah, I think that is a really good sticking point too, of like when organizations kind of are just like, what sort of like side hustle can we get so that we can post it on Instagram or whatever, like one day a year kind of thing. And then are like, I don't know why we're not having meaningful change. Or like people just like sense the inauthenticity in it immediately. Yeah. Like you're just like, no, that's some cringy BS. But yeah. So also people in the comments are really liking you, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Rhonda Fields has said that you're amazing and that leaders change the game, which I totally agree. And then Elena Simpkins, sorry if I just said your last name wrong, was like, yes.
Trey. Oh my gosh, these are people who I love dearly. So Rhonda and Elena I worked with them at Michigan. So thank you. Thank you so much.
Elena also said she likes all your food analogies always.
Oh, all the time. An analogy all the time. Food, yes, even better.
Yes. Okay. So we literally have 0.0 minutes. Okay. So we'll see how fast we can answer these next like one question.
We got it.
Let's see, which is the last one.
I can do like a minute and a half, 2 minutes. I'll stretch it.
Okay. So I was like, which is the one thing? Okay. So talking about like meaningful efforts and starting to build a more inclusive company for companies that are still very segregated, is there like a starting point you would recommend? So people that are kind of like, my whole team is all white men in their 30s. What should they do first?
You should care about it. You should probably notice it, and then have a clear vision for what you want to create. And it's got to be grounded in your two things, in what are you trying to achieve with your culture, and what are you trying to achieve in your business? Why is inclusion and diversity part of your company's purpose? Right, Cisco's purpose is to power an inclusive future for all. That makes it easy for me to do my job because it's just part of what we do. It's why we're here. And so how do you link the work that you're doing to why there's an inclusion ask, imperative, diversity imperative, equity imperative, whatever you want to call it? Why does this matter to us as a business? Because when you can wrap it there, because the culture is how you go about doing that business. I used to talk about it this way. And it's kind of this pithy quote that I think I made up one afternoon. And I was like, okay, with all due respect to Peter Drucker, I get it, right? Culture eats strategy for breakfast. Mm-hmm. But if culture eats strategy for breakfast, then I would offer that inclusion sets the table. Because you can have a strategy. That's great. Your competitors have the same strategy. Yep. It's what happens when you execute better. It's the culture, right? Great. So let's take a step back. Get culture right, your strategy goes. Wait, but if your culture isn't addressing everyone through inclusion, you ain't got no culture.
Yeah.
So why don't you start with setting the table with inclusion so that you can have a culture that absolutely executes your strategy. And I think that's how you get started. I think you have to have a clear vision for the why and the what you're going after, and then treat it like a product. That's what we said. One of our core values was treat it like a product. Design, test, debug, and iterate, and continue to have a roadmap so that you are constantly tending to it. You pay a lot of attention to your products, to your outputs. Pay attention to this. Dedicate the same amount of energy, airtime, comms, thinking time, resources, people, scaffolding. Yes, that. But it's got to be part of your roadmap, your metrics. Your data must be driven. You must be making data-driven decisions around this. You've got to treat it like a product, because then it's on your roadmap and it never leaves.
Oh,
did I do it? Okay.
Yes, that is so amazing. I had like 900 other questions for you, but we'll just like do some sort of segment 2 at some point.
Okay. I'm done.
Like 2022. Whenever I can make you be on the show again.
For sure. Whenever you call, I say, yep, ready.
Yay. Okay. Thank you, Trey, so much. So much for taking the time. I know you are literally saving the earth. So I appreciate your time so much. And everyone else, thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to see this interview or send it to other people, we'll be putting it up on entrypointmi.com. It's also on all of our social media channels. So share with all the people, all the learnings. And if you're interested in exploring strategies to better support the small business and startup community or be more inclusive in your programming, keep tuning in, and we will hopefully see everyone next week. See ya.
Awesome. Bye.